Velinari stepped off the sleek silver transport and onto the warm earth soil. Her skin shimmered faintly in the sunlight, a soft violet tone with golden veins glowing under her cheeks. Her hair floated behind her like waves of black silk, decorated with silver threads that moved on their own. She wasn't just any alien. She was the most trained, most beautiful, most dangerous diplomat the Zelari Empire had ever created. She had one mission: charm the human general, gain his trust, and get close enough to learn Earth's defense secrets. Use every tool she had: voice, beauty, seduction, manipulation. The Empire called it a peace mission, but Velinari knew better. It was war with kisses instead of bullets. General Daniel Cross stood waiting near the landing pad, tall, rough-skinned, with sharp eyes and a quiet calm that unsettled her instantly. He didn't smile, didn't step forward like other men usually did. Instead, he just nodded politely and said, "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador Velinari." She blinked. He didn't call her beautiful, didn't compliment her shimmering robes or her glowing skin. Already different from the others, she responded smoothly. "I look forward to learning about your people." But inside, she marked him as a challenge. This would not be easy. They walked through Earth's central diplomatic base, white halls, glass ceilings, and flowers she had never seen before. He pointed to a small garden outside and said, "Humans like to talk there, less pressure than an office." Velinari expected an interrogation room, not a garden. Still, she smiled and followed him. The wind carried the scent of roses and soil. Birds chirped in the trees above them. She sat, legs crossed, letting her long dress fall perfectly around her like a painting. She watched him closely, waiting for the usual signs of attraction, but Daniel just poured 2 cups of tea and handed one to her. "This blend helps calm nerves," he said. "I thought you might need it, considering the long journey." No one had ever spoken to her like that. No flirting, no hunger in his eyes. Just calm, kindness, and a strange sort of peace. Velinari sipped the tea. It was bitter but warm. She nodded. "Thank you, General." He raised an eyebrow. "Call me Daniel." Over the next few days, things got more confusing for her. She wore different outfits, ones designed to attract male attention. She walked with grace, smiled with careful charm, even touched his hand while laughing. Daniel never crossed the line. He was kind, curious, respectful. Too respectful, and yet she started liking it. He asked her about her culture, about her family, about her dreams, not her mission. She lied at first, of course, but every lie made her feel colder inside. One night, she sat alone in her room, the stars outside shining. Through the glass ceiling, she stared at the communication device in front of her. Her fingers hovered over the message pad. Subject: Daniel Cross remains resistant. She typed slowly. No valuable data gathered yet. She paused. Her hands were shaking. She deleted the message. Tried again. Human appears. Unpredictable. Kind. Mission progress. Uncertain. She sent it quickly before she could change her mind again. Then she sat back and closed her eyes. In her dreams that night, she wasn't back home on her desert planet. She was standing with Daniel in a forest, holding hands, laughing under falling leaves. The next morning, she woke up confused and frustrated. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He was just a human, just a target. But somehow, every moment with him felt real, too real. Velinari looked in the mirror and touched her lips. She had been kissed before, many times during training, but she had never wanted one. Not until now. "I have to finish the mission," she whispered to herself before it's too late. But deep inside her chest, something warm and dangerous was already growing. And she didn't even know it yet. Velinari stepped into the mirror room, her long dress sliding like water over smooth stone. Her reflection stared back, beautiful, flawless, powerful. She was Ilari's most trained seduction diplomat. Yet, her heart beat fast, not with excitement, but with confusion. She tried again, new, dressed thin, glowing softly with strands of heated silk, a scent sprayed behind her ears. Sweet, exotic, designed to awaken desire in most humans. She had memorized every detail of human attraction. She knew how to tilt her head, how to smile just enough, how to lower her voice to pull them in. This time, Daniel Cross had to react. She found him on the viewing deck, watching stars through thick glass windows. The space station floated quietly. Above Earth, he was alone, sipping from a mug. Wearing a casual shirt instead of his usual uniform, Velinari approached slowly, her hips moving with precision. Her glow turned up just enough. "You look tired, Daniel," she said softly. "Perhaps I can help you relax." He looked at her, then down at his mug. "Only thing that relaxes me is this coffee," he said with a small smile. "But I appreciate the offer." She blinked. Was that a joke? Was he playing hard to get to her? Was he truly immune? She sat beside him, closer than usual, letting her leg touch his slightly. Still, he didn't pull away, but he didn't lean in either. "Where I'm from," she whispered, "touch means trust. And what does it mean for humans?" Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Depends on the person," he said. "Some people touch to take, some to give, some to feel alive. I try not to take anything that's not freely offered." Velinari leaned back, her chest tightening. This wasn't working? Why wasn't it working? She wasn't used to this kind of resistance. It made her nervous and strangely excited. Later that night, she returned to her quarters, defeated again. She paced like a trapped animal. She wasn't just failing the mission, she was failing herself. But then Daniel's voice echoed in her memory. "I try not to take anything that's not freely offered." That felt different. She had met hundreds of diplomats, soldiers, and leaders. They all wanted something, but Daniel. He offered peace, curiosity, even silence. For the first time, she started to see him not as a mission, not as a target, but as a person. The next morning, Daniel invited her to the Earth Culture Center. It was a quiet place, filled with paintings, books, old Earth music, and warm lights. He showed her paintings of oceans, forests, cities before the wars. Velinari stood in front of a giant canvas, a woman, and a man holding hands under cherry trees. Pink petals falling like snow. "What is this?" she asked, touching the painting. "It looks peaceful." Daniel smiled. "That's Japan in spring, before the floods. Humans painted beauty to remember what we lost." Velinari stared, her voice small. "My people don't paint. Like this, we build, we conquer. We don't remember." Daniel looked at her, quiet for a long time. "Maybe that's why they sent you," he said. "You remember, don't you?" Her eyes widened. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not even her own kind. That night, something changed. She didn't wear the glowing dress. She didn't spray the perfume. She wore a simple outfit's off cloth. No lights, just her. She walked to the garden alone, and Daniel was already there, waiting with 2 cups of tea. They sat under the stars without speaking. Minutes passed, but it didn't feel awkward. It felt real. "Do humans feel lonely?" she asked, "even when surrounded by others?" He looked up at the stars. "Yes," he said, "sometimes more than when we're alone." Velinari nodded slowly. "We have silence on our planet. But it's not peaceful. It's heavy, like a weight." Daniel looked at her and asked gently, "What do you want, Velinari?" "Not your orders, not your mission, you." She opened her mouth, but no words came. She didn't know the answer. She had never asked herself that question before. Later, alone in her room, she stared at her communicator. Another report was due. Her fingers hovered over the screen. She typed slowly. The human remains emotionally distant, yet shows surprising kindness. Mission unclear. She paused again, and then she typed a final line. I don't know if I'm the weapon anymore. She sent it, then turned off the screen and laid back in bed. A tear slid down her cheek. It wasn't pain. It was something else, and far deep inside her body cells shifted. Life was beginning, but she had no idea. Not yet. Velinari stood barefoot in the middle of the human forest preserve. The wind touched her skin like fingers, brushing through her long black-silver hair. Above her, the earth sky glowed a deep orange. The sun setting slowly, birds sang strange, but beautiful songs in the distance. And she felt something she had never felt before: peace. Daniel had brought her here without guards, without ships, scanners, or body armor, just the two of them, in nature. He handed her a small piece of fruit from a tree. It's called a peach, he said with a warm smile. Try it. She bit into it carefully. Sweet juice exploded in her mouth, dripping slightly down her chin. She quickly wiped it away, embarrassed. But Daniel only chuckled gently. Happens to the best of us. Something inside her chest fluttered. She wasn't sure if it was nerves, laughter, or danger, and yet she didn't want it to stop. As they walked deeper into the woods, she asked quietly, "Why did you bring me here?" Daniel shrugged. "I wanted you to see something real," he said. "Not metal walls or glowing screens, just life growing." Wild and free, she looked around. Leaves rustled above her. A stream gurgled nearby. Nothing here was perfect, yet it felt more alive than her entire ship. "It's strange," she whispered. "But it feels like the trees are breathing." Daniel nodded. "Maybe they are. Maybe we just forgot how to listen." She turned to him slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're not like the other humans I studied. They were loud, proud, violent." "Yeah," Daniel said softly. "We can be all that. But we can also listen, learn, and change." That word change glowed inside her, and something deep inside her body responded in silence. That night, back in her quarters, Velinari stood under the soft lights of the shower. Water fell over her shoulders, warm and comforting. She touched her stomach gently. There was no pain, no sickness, but something different, like warmth blooming from within. She dried herself slowly and sat by the edge of her bed. Her fingers trembled slightly. She had experienced strange emotions before: conflict, shame, even curiosity. But now, it felt like the feelings had mixed and melted into something else, something heavier, deeper. She turned on her communicator. The screen glowed, asking for her report. Her finger hovered over the keys, but didn't move. She couldn't report him anymore. She couldn't lie. But she also couldn't tell the truth. Not yet. Mission delayed due to environmental adjustments. She typed quickly. Subject remains under observation. She shut the device off, stood up, and stared at her reflection. Her eyes looked softer. Her skin glowed differently. She leaned closer, narrowing her gaze. "What's happening to me?" she whispered. The next morning, she went to the medical bay, quietly, alone. She told the system she needed a scan for internal stress. The AI agreed, scanning her body gently. Then, a pause. A small blinking message appeared. Foreign. DNA detected. Vital signs changing. Possible interspecies conception in early phase. She blinked. The screen flickered again, confirming pregnancy detected. Her knees weakened. She grabbed the edge of the table to stay upright. "No, that's not possible," she said out loud. "We didn't even..." She stopped, realizing the truth. The bonding rituals of her species were not physical like humans. Emotional syncing, mental closeness, shared meals. Eye contact under moonlight to the Zelari. These were mating signals, and with her body altered to adapt for diplomacy. She wasn't just bonded to him, she had conceived. Hours later, Velinari sat in the garden again. But this time, alone and silent. The stars above blinked slowly, as if watching her from afar. She couldn't tell him, not yet. How could she explain this to a man who didn't even know what he had done? "You were never supposed to matter this much," she whispered to herself. "You were just the mission." But now she carried something that was not Empire, not Earth, something new, a life. Later, Daniel found her there. He noticed her pale face and tired eyes. "Are you all right?" he asked gently. Sitting beside her, she forced a smile. "I think. I just saw something today," she said, "that changed how I see everything." Daniel didn't ask more. He didn't press or push. He simply sat beside her in the quiet night, and for the first time, Velinari leaned against him. No tricks, no mission, no lies. Just warmth and silence, and a heartbeat. Not hers, but one growing inside her. Velinari sat alone in her chamber. Outside her window, stars moved. Slowly past the glass, silent and endless. Inside her body, something else moved. Something that was hers and not hers. A child, half Solari, half human. Something that wasn't supposed to happen. Not by accident, not by order, not by design. She placed a hand on her belly, still flat. Still unchanged from the outside, but inside it had already begun. Cells, heartbeat, life, and she hadn't told Daniel. Not because she didn't want to, but because she was afraid. Afraid of what he'd say, afraid of what the Empire would do if they found out. Her communicator beeped suddenly. She turned to it, eyes narrowing. A message appeared, stamped with the red seal of Zelari Command, from High Command to Agent Velinari. Mission status, critical phase order, proceed with full physical engagement. Target, Daniel Cross objective. Harvest emotional and biological data. Failure to comply will be considered Taraya Soen. She stared at the screen, unmoving, emotionless on the outside, but inside her heart raced. She had been trained for this. It was part of the plan from the beginning. Seduction, bonding, extraction of secrets through intimacy. But now? It felt wrong. Daniel wasn't just a mission anymore. He was the only person who had ever treated her like a real being. Not a tool, not a threat, not a beauty to be used. Just her. The door chimed. Daniel's voice came through gently. Velinari. "Are you okay?" "You didn't show up for the meeting." She wiped her face quickly, though no tears had fallen yet. "Come in," she said softly. Daniel stepped in, carrying a thermos and 2 mugs. "Thought you might like more of that calming tea," he said with a small smile. "You looked a little tired yesterday." She nodded, accepting the mug with shaking hands. "Daniel," she said suddenly, "what if I told you that I wasn't honest with you?" He didn't look surprised. He just sat beside her and said, "I already figured that out." Her eyes widened. "You did?" Daniel nodded. "I knew you weren't just a normal diplomat, the way you watched everything, the questions, the hesitation, but I didn't say anything because I didn't feel danger." She looked down, guilt curling in her throat. "I was sent here to manipulate you," she whispered, "to seduce you, win your trust. And take your secrets." Daniel was silent for a moment. Then he said softly, "So why are you telling me this now?" Velinari couldn't speak for a second. Then she finally whispered, "Because I don't want to follow that order anymore." The silence between them stretched. Daniel didn't stand, didn't run, didn't get angry. He just looked at her, really looked. "Velinari," he said, "what do you want?" She felt tears gather in her eyes, but forced them back. "I want to protect what's growing inside me," she said finally. "Something that should not be possible, but is." His brows furrowed, confused. Then his eyes widened. "Wait. Are you saying you're—" She nodded slowly. "Your child," she whispered, "is growing inside me." Daniel leaned back in shock, running a hand over his face. He didn't speak for a long time. When he finally did, his voice was quiet, but steady. That's a lot I wasn't expecting. This Velinari looked down, ashamed. I understand if you want me to leave, she said. The Empire will come for me soon. But Daniel shook his head. You're not leaving alone. He said firmly, if you're in danger, then so is the child. We'll figure this out together. She looked at him, truly looked. And her heart broke all over again because she didn't deserve him, but he stood beside her anyway. Hours later, in secret, they met with Dr. Alara, human biologist with clearance and a kind heart. She ran tests, careful and quiet. The results were clear. It's real, she said, amazed. A true cross-species child, genetically stable, but her voice turned serious. The Zelari won't let this child exist. They'll see it as a threat, a mutation, or worse. A weapon. Daniel's fists clenched. Then we leave. He said, we vanish before they find out. Velinari stared at the floor. They've already ordered me to engage with you, she said quietly. They'll know soon I disobeyed. Daniel stood. Then we don't wait, he said. We move now. He looked at her with more than courage. He looked at her with purpose. We protect this life, Velinari, even if the galaxy comes after us for the first time. She believed him completely, not because he was strong, but because he was good. And in that moment, Velinari knew she had made her decision. She wasn't the Empire's weapon anymore. She was a mother. Velinari stood beside the small ship docked in the hidden bay below Earth's surface. This port wasn't on any official map. It was an old smuggler's route from the Resource Wars. Now forgotten, but tonight it had one purpose: escape. The cold air bit at her skin, but she didn't move. Her hand stayed firmly on her belly. She couldn't feel movement yet, but she knew the life inside her was growing stronger each day. Daniel stepped beside her, carrying supplies, water, med kits. Encrypted comms. He didn't look like a general now. He looked like a man running from something bigger than war. But his eyes held fire, not fear, but fierce determination. The ship's ready, he said. We have about 2 hours before the scan satellites pass overhead. Velinari nodded. She still hadn't slept, not since the doctor confirmed. Everything, the pregnancy, the danger, the miracle, they entered the ship. It was small but clean. With 2 seats and a narrow bed in the back, Daniel checked the systems while she sat quietly. Breathing slowly, you don't have to do this. She whispered suddenly, you could stay, you'd be safe. He turned, eyes narrowing, and leave you to face them alone. He asked, not a chance. Velinari looked away, ashamed. I was supposed to use you, she said. My whole body was built for seduction, control, manipulation. Even my DNA was altered to match humans better. Daniel walked over, sat across from her. And yet you made a choice, he said. You protected life instead of following orders. That's what matters now. Hours passed. The ship hovered just above the mountain edge, waiting for the final signal. Then Velinari gasped. A strange pain shot through her lower body. Not sharp, but deep, hot. Daniel rushed to her side. What's wrong? She held her stomach, breathing hard. I don't know, she said. It's too early for pain. He helped her to the bed, then called Dr. Alara on the encrypted line. The doctor responded immediately, described the symptoms, Velinari. Told her everything: pain, heat, dizziness. The doctor's voice turned serious. You're not in labor, she said, but the child's DNA is evolving. It's activating something in your body. Velinari's eyes widened, activating. The embryo is connecting with both species, the doctor explained. It's forming something new. Something neither fully human nor Zelari. Your body is adjusting, but it's risky. Daniel clenched his fists. Can we stop it? You don't stop evolution, Alara said. You survive it, as hours passed. Velinari drifted between sleep and awareness. She saw visions in her mind flashes of a future not yet written. A child with glowing eyes and soft skin, running through a green forest, laughing, calling out, "Mother, Father." She awoke in tears. Daniel was holding her hand, his head resting beside her arm. "Did I speak?" she asked weakly. He looked up. "Just one word," he said softly. "You said ours, by morning." The pain had faded. Velinari stood slowly, holding onto the wall for support. Daniel handed her a drink with vitamins and calming herbs. "You made it through," he said with a proud smile. She nodded. "I thought I was strong before," she whispered, "but carrying life. This is a different kind of strength." Daniel placed his hand gently over hers. "We'll raise that life together," he said, "no matter where we go." Suddenly, the ship's alarm blared. A red light flashed above the cockpit. Daniel rushed to the controls, scanning the screen. "They found us," he muttered. "Empire patrol ship Solari." Velinari's breath caught in her throat. "They'll kill us both," she said, "and take the child to dissect." Daniel tightened the straps on his belt. "Then we don't let them catch us." "Buckle in," she did, her hands shaking as the engines roared to life. The ship lifted off, cutting through the trees, climbing into the sky behind them. Red lasers sliced through the night. Daniel twisted the controls, dodging blasts. Velinari held her stomach tightly, whispering to her unborn child, "Hold on, little one. We're fighting for you." The ship escaped the atmosphere, just as the Zelair patrol called in reinforcements, but Daniel punched in hyperspace coordinates. "We're going dark," he said. "We'll disappear for now." As the stars stretched around them, Velinari leaned back and closed her eyes. "Where are we going?" she asked, exhausted. Daniel looked at her with soft eyes. "Anywhere we can build a future," he said, "a place where they'll never find us." And as the stars folded around them, Velinari smiled for the first time in days, because now she knew they weren't just escaping. They were starting something new. Not a mission, not a war, but a life, a family. Asterisk, the stars outside the window blurred into lines as the ship entered hyperspace. Silence filled the cabin, broken only by the soft hum of the engines. Velinari sat strapped in the co-pilot seat, her fingers tightly gripping the armrests. Every beat of her heart was louder than the engine. She wasn't sure if it was fear, exhaustion, or the growing life inside her. Daniel sat beside her, focused. His hands moved across the controls with precision. He had flown hundreds of missions before, but this one felt different. This time, he wasn't saving a planet. He was saving a future, his child's future. "How long do we stay in hyperspace?" Velinari asked, her voice hoarse. 3 hours, Daniel replied, not taking his eyes off the readouts. "Then we drop into the neutral zone, near the edge of the Solari belt." Velinari had heard of the zone, a lawless region where broken ships, lost traders, and exiled beings drifted like forgotten ghosts. It wasn't safe, but that also made it invisible. "What happens if the Empire tracks our jump signature?" she asked softly. Daniel glanced at her. "Then we'll move again," he said. "And again, if we have to. As long as you're with me, and our child stays safe." For a while, they said nothing. The silence between them felt heavier than words. Velinari rested her hand on her belly. It was warm again, just like during the last surge. "Do you think it's a boy or girl?" she asked suddenly, surprising even herself. Daniel looked thoughtful. "I don't know," he said with a small smile, "but I hope they get your strength." Velinari blinked. "I don't feel strong," she whispered. "You are," Daniel replied without hesitation. "You could have followed your orders, betrayed me, saved yourself, but you didn't." She looked away, tears rising. Not sadness, just the overwhelming truth of everything they had been through. 3 hours passed. Daniel pulled the ship out of hyperspace. The stars returned to their normal place, sharp, cold, endless. The space around them was filled with debris. Broken satellites and drifting junk. Old battle wrecks floated like ghosts. In a forgotten graveyard, this was the edge of known space, no laws. No governments, no safety. But for them, it was a hiding place. Daniel guided the ship toward a small asteroid base. Half buried in rock and covered with radiation shields. "I know someone here," he said. "Old smuggler owes me a favor." Velinari frowned. "We're trusting a smuggler with our lives." Daniel grinned. Sometimes the dirtiest hands hide the cleanest hearts. Inside the base, the air smelled like oil and heat. Dim lights flickered overhead. A tall man with cybernetic arms approached. Wiping grease from his fingers. "Daniel." "Cross," the man said. "Didn't expect to see you again. I need a place to lay low." Daniel replied, "No names, no questions, no traces." The man looked at Velinari. Then at her stomach. He raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. "You'll have it," he said finally. Room 14. Down the hall, Velinari collapsed onto the bed in their new room. It was small, dusty, but quiet. For now, that was enough. Daniel placed a protective field around the door and ran a diagnostic on the child's biosignals. The portable scanner beeped softly. The readings were stronger than ever. The child was growing fast. "Too fast," Dr. Elara said. "Hybrid. Development might accelerate," Velinari said, reading the data. "But this is advanced." Daniel looked concerned. "Will it hurt you?" Velinari shook her head slowly. "No, but it means we don't have much time." Later, she stood at the edge of the room, watching the stars through a tiny window. "Do you think we'll be running forever?" she asked. Daniel walked up behind her, placing his hands gently on her shoulders. "Maybe," he said, "but I'd rather run with you than stay and lose everything." She turned to face him. "I was created for war," she said, "trained to use my body, my words, my emotions as weapons." He looked into her eyes. "You were never a weapon to me," he said. "You were a warning that turned into a miracle." Velinari leaned into him, her head resting against his chest. For the first time in her life, she felt safe, not because of armor, or ships, or orders, but because someone stood beside her, not as a soldier, not as a commander, but as a partner. A sudden knock echoed on the door. Both of them tensed. Daniel drew his weapon silently, while Velinari stepped to the side, protecting her stomach. The smuggler's voice came through the speaker. "You need to see this." They opened the screen, and a video feed popped up. It was a broadcast from the Zelari Empire. The Empress herself appeared, her voice cold and sharp. "To the traitor Velinari and the human Daniel Cross, return the hybrid child to the Empire, or face total elimination." Velinari's hand went to her belly instinctively. Daniel's jaw tightened. "They know," he said, "and they're coming." But Velinari didn't step back. She stood tall, eyes glowing slightly under the dim lights. "Let them come," she said quietly. "I will protect this child." No matter what, Daniel stepped beside her. "Then we do it together." The warning had been sent across every star system the Zelari Empire touched. Velinari was now branded a traitor. Daniel Cross was marked as a threat to galactic peace, and their unborn child was labeled a biological danger. The message was clear: return or be destroyed, but inside the dusty, hidden base near the Solari belt. Velinari wasn't planning to return. She was preparing to give birth. Pain struck her in the middle of the night. It wasn't like before this time. It was real, sharp, and deep. Her hands trembled as she reached for the emergency signal. Daniel rushed into the room, eyes wide. "Is it time?" She nodded, sweat running down her face. "The baby's coming," she whispered. "Now." Daniel didn't panic. He activated the medical program on their ship and helped her lie down on the portable biobed. "I've never delivered a child before," he said, "but I'll be here every second." She gritted her teeth and grabbed his hand. "Just Don't leave me. Never, he whispered, kissing her forehead. The ship's AI scanned her body, giving instructions in a calm voice. Hybrid fetus, entering final stage of development. Prepare for high-energy release. High-energy release. Daniel repeated, confused. What does that mean? Velinari screamed as a surge of power rushed through her body. Her skin glowed bright purple. Her veins lit up like lightning. The child was not just coming into the world, was awakening outside. The base sensors lit up in red. A Zalari warship had arrived. Massive and dark, like a floating predator, it began scanning the area. Looking for life signs, inside, the smuggler ran to the control room. They're here, he shouted. You? Need to get out now? Daniel activated the ship's launch sequence, but Velinari screamed again. I can't. Move. The energy in the room grew stronger. Lights flickered. The ship shook slightly. The child was not just being born, it was releasing waves of energy. Suddenly, a beam of light shot out from Velinari's body. It struck the ceiling and spread into patterned symbols in both human and Zalari language. The ship's AI voice cracked for a moment before stabilizing. New energy signature detected. Child possesses dual-species energy core. Daniel's jaw dropped. What does that mean? The child is not just alive, the AI replied. It's evolving past both species. Velinari gasped one last time, and then silence. A soft cry broke through the stillness. Small, powerful, beautiful. Daniel held the baby carefully, tears in his eyes. It had tiny hands, smooth purple-pink skin, and glowing blue eyes. The child opened her mouth and yawned. No threats. No weapons, just a newborn girl. Velinari looked up weakly. Is she? Daniel smiled through tears. She's perfect, he whispered. She's everything. Velinari touched her child's face, and for the first time in her life, she felt whole. Suddenly, alarms blared. The warship outside had locked. Onto their location, the smuggler screamed through the comms. They're charging weapons? Get out now. Daniel placed the baby in the safety pod and helped Velinari into the co-pilot seat. Can you fly? Barely, she replied, but I'll follow you. Their ship lifted off as the Zalari vessel fired. Explosions rocked the mountain base. Debris flying in every direction, but the small ship twisted through it, breaking through the chaos. As they reached orbit, more enemy ships appeared. But then the baby cried again, a soft, ringing sound that echoed through the ship's sensors. Suddenly, their enemy ships paused, scanners shut down, weapons cooled, as if the cry reached. Inside their systems, Velinari looked at Daniel in shock. She's doing it, she whispered. The child is protecting us. Daniel stared at the scanners. Every Zalari ship was now floating. Still and powerless, the baby cooed, her hands glowing gently. She's not a weapon, Daniel said. She's a key. They jumped into hyperspace, disappearing. Into the stars, behind them, the Zalari ships slowly came back online, but they didn't follow. They were too stunned, too shaken. A child had just disabled an entire fleet without violence. Without hate, just with her presence. Days later, the family landed on a small moon covered in flowers and soft blue skies. A safe world, untouched by empires. Velinari walked slowly through the grass. Holding her daughter close, Daniel followed, carrying supplies and smiling like a man who had finally found peace. What will we name her? He asked. Velinari looked up at the sky. Nova, she said, because she was born like a star, and there, in the middle of nowhere, something new began. Not just a life, not just a family, but a future, born from betrayal, built on love, and shining with hope.